They asked a bunch of Chinese kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were like, I want to be an astronaut and an engineer. And then they asked a bunch of American children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the American children said, no, they want to be celebrities, YouTubers, influencers, actors. And that is totally because of the Western influence. And TikTok actually shows, it's scary, shows their Chinese kids science projects and educational stuff. But then if you go on the TikTok in America or even in South Africa, it's totally filled with different things. Gen Z are very individualized. Like Gen Z are going to be the largest consumer base in the world by 2030. Amazing to see how many people don't know their parents, have a relationship with their parents, and they don't have a relationship with their siblings.
Disrupt yourself or be disrupted with Nicky, a kick-ass author, international keynote speaker, digital knowledge amplifier, and a voice for those who yearn to reinvent themselves. Disrupting yourself is the key to progress and growth in the world of disruptive technologies.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. This podcast is really about empowering everyday people to embrace digital disruption and upskill themselves to align with where the world is going. And today we have an amazing guest, Marko Stavrou, who is the Gen Z guy. He actually identifies himself as a Gen Z guy. And when we talk of disruption and digital technologies, the Gen Zs are really the people who are at the forefront of this. And that's why I'm excited to talk to him today. Marko, you are welcome to the podcast. Tell us more about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's so excited to be here. My name is Marko Stavrou, and yes, my LinkedIn does say the Gen Z guy. I'm currently 18 years old. I have a consulting company called Stavrou Consulting that helps large corporates better connect to Gen Z. And I've got a startup accelerator called Hustlers Global, which helps Gen Z founders scale, post-revenue Gen Z founders scale their business. So that's what I'm up to. Do a lot of speaking. I'm currently also studying at Henley Business School, the youngest person to be accepted there globally. So yeah, very excited to talk to you about disruption and innovation and entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's fantastic. I told you that this is an interesting guest we have in the house today. So, Marko, for those who know my story, they understand that my life was literally disrupted when I got retrenched a couple of years ago, which led me to the path in which I am now. It's a story I've told so many times. But I'm curious to know, has your life ever been disrupted by circumstances beyond your control?
Well, a great example is COVID. I think that was a huge disruption that was totally out of my control. And COVID was actually it led to a major disruption in my personal life. That being that I actually left high school and started doing Cambridge, and that's where I kind of started pursuing my business full time. And the reason why COVID allowed me to do that is before I had no other alternatives to any traditional education or credible education. And so when I found Cambridge and I found the tutoring system, I was then able to convince my parents and myself that this transition into full-time business and finishing school early was the right one.
That's fantastic. So basically, there's always something that we can harvest from a disruption, whether it's a negative one or a positive one, right?
Absolutely.
So that's great. Now, that happened beyond your control. Like, no one planned for COVID. No one even know how to really fully react to that global disruption that happened. So my next question to you would be, have you ever willingly disrupted yourself? Like maybe you're on a particular path and you realize, maybe it's time for me to move to the other side. Has that type of experience ever happened to you?
Well, I definitely, something that I've always been certain of from a young age is that I never ever wanted to work for someone. I wanted to be self-employed, an entrepreneur, have my own business, have my own freedom. And so I think putting the interventions and measurements in place so that can happen, and that being, working extremely hard from a young age, finding, opportunities from a cash flow point of view that allow me to not put financial pressure on myself, and to also, pursue what I want to pursue. I think also from a business point of view, I've always tried to put things in place that, for example, like I believe in financial pressure, because if you are not full full-time, like a lot of people say, you can go to university and run a business. Yes, you can, but the chances that you're going to be successful and gain momentum is very, very, few. So I believe in putting financial pressure, like we have targets and we have expenses that sometimes we just put in place so that there's not this comfortability, and then our team sees that we have to grow, we have to get that client, we have to generate leads. So I believe in that's a business example that I've put in place.
That's really great. When I hear you saying from a young age, I'm thinking to myself, he's under 18, like he's still young, right?
Yeah.
Which is quite fascinating about what you're able to achieve as a teenager, and how much you have so much clarity about what your future essentially entails. There are people in their 20s that have no clue really what they want out of life. Even some in their 30s that have no understanding whatsoever what they want to do, what they want to achieve. They're literally just going with the flow. So I think I'm saying that to say I commend you for having such clarity about your future at such a young age. And it's fascinating what you've already done up to this point. You're only 18, so I can only imagine 10 years from now what your life would be. I can only imagine 10 years from now, what you'll be able to, how you'll be able to impact the world and impact even the younger generation that will be much younger than you by then. And so you mentioned something that I want you to expand on, financial pressure. What does that mean? What does that look like? Because a lot of people don't want financial pressure. Like the mindset is, I want to be financial stability. I don't have to worry about money, but you seem to be like, it's a good thing to have financial pressure. What is that?
So, I think from a personal point of view, financial pressure isn't good. From a business standpoint, it can be really effective. And what I was referring to is, like, even right now, I currently stay with my parents. It's by total choice. Yeah. And the reason is that I'm on the aggressive with my businesses. So everything I make, I take selective salary, which means that some months I'll take certain amounts, other times I won't take. And that's totally dependent on our objectives. And so I'll sit with one of my co-founders in other businesses, and we've got an advisory board for both businesses. And we'll say, okay, cool. These are our objectives. In order to get them, we need to put this much amount of money in, which obviously puts financial pressure from a accounts point of view, because you don't know if you're going to break even. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay your team's salaries. And so I've always believed right now that, like, if my business fails, good.
Absolutely.
Because I then have gone on the aggressive and I've taken action and I'm wanting to grow and I'm learning. And for me right now, that's the most important. And a lot of young people focus on money, focus on success, focus on, recognition. And for me, it's never been about that. I love the process. I see business as a game. I would not have been doing it since I was 15 years old. It's all I think about in terms from a love point of view. So I'm doing it for different reasons than other people. And that's why I believe I've already won and I'm going to win moving forward.
That's a great mindset. So you identify yourself as the Gen Z guy, which I think is quite an interesting niche. And no one understands Gen Z is more than the Gen Z himself, right? So what inspired you to take that path? Like, okay, I'm going to be able to speak to the Gen Z and inspire them and help them start whatever they want to start. What inspired you?
Well, firstly, let's quickly define Gen Z, because not a lot of people know what that demographic is. But essentially, they were born from 1995 to 2010. Some people say 2012. There's some speculation on that.
So what's the age?
So the oldest is 28 and the youngest is 13. From that, that ranges. And there was one thing that's important about, aside from their age, is what circumstance happened to them. So, for example, they grew up with their parents experiencing the 2008 crash, 9/11. Now, these are all factors and events that caused their parents to have a certain mindset which affected them. Another one, obviously, is a lot of them were in high school in COVID. So now they see education in a certain way. Like 46% of Gen Z are changing careers post-COVID. So that's a major thing, is they're in university, they're in high school, and they mentally have got a total shift on where they want to take their life. So, there's these certain events that define Gen Z, which I just explained, plus then obviously their age. And in terms of, back to your original question, is that I was posting, like, as a young entrepreneur, I was always associated, this young teen entrepreneur, this, that. And I was like, let me change that and commercialize that to, I help organizations and other people connect to Gen Z, and I help Gen Z people themselves, and those being teenagers. So I kind of, through posting content and back to clarity and purpose, I believe any parent who comes up to me or any student who comes up to me and says, Marko, how do I find my passions? How do I find what I love doing? It's action. It's by taking action and just doing as many things as you can. The reason why some 28 and even 35-year-olds have no clarity in their life is because they've spent university, just at parties or just doing one certain type of academic institution, or they've gone to a specific job and they've worked there the whole time. They haven't got to try many things. And so I believe that is, creates that clarity. And then, as I started posting about that, I realized, let me step into this. And since then, it's been, very, very, very effective.
Wow, that's really great. And I think there is a big shift or a big difference, maybe not necessarily a shift, but a difference in mindset between the Gen Zs and the Millennials, and the baby boomers. What is the mindset that stands out for you? Or, when you speak of maybe traditional mindset, how does it differ within the Gen Z generation?
So the stats, absolutely. So millennials are very team orientated.
Yeah.
They were always collaborative. They want to work in teams in a working environment. Where Gen Z are very individualized. They want to work, give me the project and I'll go and do it in my own time. They don't like open co-working spaces. The reason being is because the pressure, they don't want their boss looking over them. They don't want other teammates judging them based on what they're doing. And a lot of that is from social media, right? Because they feel like they're being judged, and they're always thinking about other people's opinion. What are other people thinking of me? So that's a big difference. Millennials and Gen Z are actually the most segregated and separated from a thinking point of view generation. They see the world very different. Where boomers or Gen X, which is after millennials, they kind of work a bit better together. And then it'll be interesting now to see Gen Alpha as they rise.
Oh, what's it called?
Gen Alpha. So they're the ones born before Gen Z, the generation before. So it'll be interesting.
Okay, so what do you think are the core competencies when it comes to Gen Zs? What are the typical skills they would normally prefer or go for?
Characteristics of them?
Yeah.
So Gen Z, as I mentioned, are very individualistic. They like their own thing. We see now they've got their own unique style, their own unique ways of doing work. They are very also financially aware because of that 2008 crash, and because their parents put this pressure. They are thinking about their finances. They are thinking about how can they support their families, especially coming out of COVID. Another thing is they're very competitive. And so a lot of people get surprised by this. Oh, my kid, they're lazy, or I don't see them as competitive. But if you see them in a workspace, they're the first person to get there in the morning because they think that by building a relationship with their boss, they can climb the ladder faster, right? So they're very competitive in things that they believe in or things that they like. Some other characteristics are that they are wanting to have different roles within an organization. So we know about this thing called the gig economy, where it is basically freelance work, people doing small projects, working for multiple companies. And so they believe that they want to have multiple income streams, not just work for one company for 45 years.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are actually moving away from that. Maybe not by choice necessarily, but just by the way the world is changing and technology is changing everything. So the idea of work in one organization for that long, it's really obsolete. It's no longer a reality for the world in which we are living today, basically. So since you have a deep understanding about the Gen Z, what would you say to a parent who is raising a Gen Z or an educator, since most of them are in schools? What advice would you give them in terms of relating and understanding this demographic?
So when I speak at a lot of schools, and I speak Standard Bank's my client, I've spoken at ABSA, I've spoken a lot of corporates in South Africa.
And we met in Cape Town.
Innovation Summit. And the crazy thing is most managers, executives, leaders do not even know Gen Z. So 4% of ABSA's workforce is Gen Z, 15% of Standard Bank's workforce is Gen Z. And that's already quite a lot if you're looking at Gen Z's only like 24 to 28 age range are entering the workforce. So it's quite shocking that these consumers are among, like Gen Z are going to be the largest consumer base in the world by 2030. Their earning power by 2025 is 33 trillion. So these are some alarming stats that if you, your company or your parent, like the best thing I can say is know Gen Z. So how do we know Gen Z? Understand them. So like get in their world. You can't relate to a child if you don't know, like you can't have a conversation with them. So download TikTok, get Snapchat, speak to them about, what are the trends happening in their life. Get into their world so that you can create conversation and not just be at the dinner table all on your guys' cell phones, or having, a lot of conflict comes from that because the parent doesn't understand and the child doesn't understand where the parent's coming from. So I really believe in being open. Gen Z are big on feedback directly. If your child does something you don't like, don't wait 2 weeks. Go to them there and now and say, hey, the way you behaved, your attitude was not right, and tell them the reasons why, and tell them how you want to see them improve. And so I think that's really, really important because of there's this theory, Nicky, called social comparison theory, which basically states that people make decisions based on other people's opinions. And that is, as I mentioned previously, because of social media. So what Gen Z needs is a lot of affirmation on who they are and really providing positive feedback and saying, hey, son and daughter, just because you're not getting full A's doesn't mean that you're an inferior student, or just because you're not great at sport doesn't mean you can't fit into society. And so we need to be focused on what is your child's gift, or what is your specific team, what are they really good at, what does that person bring to the table, and focusing on that and honing those skills and uplifting people. Like, I'm really big on kindness, I'm really big on upliftment. I think that is how we create better work cultures. That's how we get better results in our businesses and in life.
That's really great. I wasn't sure if I wanted to touch on the social media aspect. When you mentioned TikTok, my mind just went there because this is literally where most Gen Zs live, right? So what are your thoughts on the statistics that show how high consumption of social media basically affects Gen Zs mentally? What are your thoughts on that?
So actually, interestingly enough, the fastest growing demographic on TikTok is actually people aged between 35 and 55, which is quite funny because you see these teenagers dancing and you see these young people, but actually the fastest growing is that older demographic. However, there's huge effects from the way that they see themselves to the way they see other people to the way they see work to the way they see the world, because for the first time they're being exposed. Like, look at the Ukraine-Russia war. Like 50 years ago, a child only knows what they see in their village or in their area. And so now we're being exposed to so much more, and our brains can't take it. Right? And so that's why a big reason why Gen Z are so passionate about social causes such as climate change, human trafficking, world hunger, and because they're seeing that. However, that being said, because they're seeing so much, how do they actually cope with that? Like, what is their coping mechanism? Who do they speak to about it? Because their parents are all working because of, we're entering a recession now, and so there's this financial pressure. So who do they go to? Do they go to their friends who also are influenced by these huge companies such as Facebook and Instagram and TikTok? And unfortunately, a lot of TikTok, so they asked, there's a crazy and you can search it on Safari. But basically, they asked a bunch of Chinese kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were like, I want to be an astronaut and an engineer. And then they asked a bunch of American children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the American children said, no, they want to be celebrities, YouTubers, influencers, actors. And that is totally because of the Western influence. And TikTok actually shows, it's scary, shows their Chinese kids science projects and educational stuff. But then if you go on the TikTok in America or even in South Africa, it's totally filled with different things.
I agree. I completely agree. I think it's all done by design. Because currently, just yesterday, I was watching the CEO of TikTok before Congress. I don't know if you watched
I've seen that.
It was live, right? And they're questioning him on these things like TikTok is essentially dangerous for many of the young people. So when you're dealing with the Gen Zs, do you highlight this? Like, as much as you're on these platforms, pay attention to how it's affecting your mental health, because I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. Otherwise, some kids also will grow up on TikTok and will not really know how to relate in real life. So to expand on that, when it comes to social skills, as much as you interact with Gen Zs, how do you think they relate with the outside world, outside of TikTok and outside of these social media platforms? It's not just TikTok alone. There's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's also tons of them that spend so much time on YouTube videos. Plus Netflix itself, it takes people away from these social interactions. So Gen Zs in particular, do you think they have social skills to be able to relate in the workplace, to be able to relate with people outside of social media?
So a great documentary everyone should go watch is called The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. Go and see that. Shows the effects of social media on children, on even yourselves. And yes, so there's two parts to this. One is that a lot of people think that Gen Z don't want in-person interaction, which is actually a misconception. And we're seeing at universities, we're seeing in the workforce, they actually want to come in 3 to 4 days a week to work, and that's because they deem that as a greater way to increase their salary, to get to like their boss, and so that's quite a big thing. And then I have seen a lot of young people that just have no EQ and SQ and social skills, and it's very, very concerning because they can't communicate, they don't like public speaking, and these are some of the most important characteristics that I possess that I really believe have led me to this moment. For example, just like when I used to sell sneakers, like just the ambition and the blindness to be able to go up to random people and do it. Even now, like when I'm on a call and selling a $5,000 package, or speaking to an exco team at a corporate as an 18-year-old young person, you have to have so much confidence and self-esteem and assurance in what you believe in. And most young people don't. And that for me is really, really, really concerning. And even like the whole dating scene, relationships from a friendship's point of view, it's crazy. This thing about ghosting, like it's such a foreign concept to most people that you would just suddenly the one day be talking to someone and the next just disappeared.
I don't know what to say.
Like it's scary that you can, from a psychological aspect, what that does to someone else. It's traumatic. And so because Gen Z think that they know, because they've grown up with social media, they've grown up with technology, they don't realize the effect. They don't realize the addiction and how it affects their mental health, their sleep, their physical, chemical health. And so it's very, I do have conversations with young people about this often, and I do try and empower and educate parents as well.
That's really good what you're doing. I have to commend you for that. So how can they balance their digital lives and everyday experience outside of the social media? What are your suggestions? How can they balance that? Because for some people, all they have is their cell phone and that TikTok account.
Well, unfortunately, what globalization has done to us is it's caused us to be the loneliest. So people think because they've got their phone that they're connected to people, when actually the stats show that we are the loneliest we've ever been. And I think it's because for the first time, where you would be living in Jerusalem or Israel with your family and never ever, travel, globalization has forced us. Now people have got jobs all over around the world. They don't know their family. They don't know their siblings. It's amazing to see how many people don't know their parents, have a relationship with their parents, and they don't have a relationship with their siblings. And so what that does is it forces us to go online because we need that dopamine kick, we need that sensation, we need that sense of belonging. And so I would really recommend people you only need 3 close friends or even one. Find your tribe, find the people that are like-minded, that believe in you, that are going to support you for who you are. And the way that I've done that is there's a part of that that's in the business community, and there's a part of that that's outside at different organizations that I'm a part of, different socials that I go to, and so I think that's really important, is to prioritize that connection with people. And I think also a lot of people need to spend more time on themselves.
Yeah.
So self-awareness, most young people have got very limited self-awareness. They don't know what they love.
Yeah.
Like, ask your child, like, what are you really passionate about? And most children don't know because they've just been forced into a societal, a system where, like, for example, school, do these things, do this sport, learn about this. And so they never actually, one thing what I realized when I left high school was, like, you have to make your own decisions. I was caught in this trap where, like, because I had no time and I was doing all these extramurals, I never had to think for myself. Now suddenly I had all this time in the world and I didn't know what to do with it. So I would sit and I would be like, do I do sport? Do I do this business? Do I meet this friend? Everything had to come from me, the self-actualization, and it's very, very scary.
Absolutely. I think you've mentioned, since we started talking, about you dropping out of school twice, and I want to double click on that, so to say, because there's something that I highlight in my book when it comes to education, right, which is like the one-size-fits-all approach to education does not work for all the kids. Some kids don't want that. So what was the one thing or a couple of things that caused you to say, like, what, high school is not for me? Why did you leave? Why did you drop out?
So COVID was a big thing. I wasn't getting I was a very good tennis player, so I wasn't getting the tennis because of COVID. I wasn't getting the public speaking. I wasn't getting the connection with my friends and teachers. And so online learning for me was terrible. I think also I got to a point in my business, and this is another big point, is that a lot of people want to take these huge steps without setting up the next path. So I'm very intentional about planning things and being very, just like, what is your plan? Like, what is your 6-month plan? What is your 2-year plan? Where are you going? Why are you doing what are you doing? And so I had gotten my business and my relationship with my business partner and myself to a place ready to make that transition. And I think that was really, really important. So those were the big things. Is I was ready. My parents had accepted it. We had found Cambridge, and then COVID.
Oh, great. I see. So you are so brilliant at the way you articulate yourself, the clarity you have about your future. Is this something that you think is inborn? You are natural at it, or did you learn it?
So I think a part of it is, so if we look at my personality, I'm a 3, born 3 on Enneagram, and I've got a bit of 8 to me as well. But so definitely I believe that certain people are born with this instinctive ability to just take action, put themselves out there, communicate, which I think I definitely possessed. But this ability right now, this conversation, this is 300 interviews that I've done. This is 50 stages that I've been on. This is thousands of sales calls from the last 4 years that I've done. And so I'd love to say that, people say, you're just naturally good at speaking, or you just know what you want to do. No, I've worked for 10 plus businesses. I've taken action. I've gone to many events where there was no young people. I've had many conversations, just random conversations with people that at bowls, I used to play bowls, at paddle tennis where I played tennis. You can have the gift and you can have the ability, but you have to train.
Absolutely. I love that. And I hope people are listening. He actually, even if you're born with it, like you still need to put yourself out there to be able to perfect it, so to say. Work on your craft. Practice it from those sales calls to being able to interact with your friends or with your business partner or with the clients you're trying to close, and all of that. That has helped you get where you are right now. So if there's any young person listening, I think the advice is that train. Put yourself out there. You will never be brilliant at talking to people by looking at your phone.
Yeah.
You will never be brilliant at interacting with people by clicking like on social media all day long. You are a Gen Z yourself, but you have not buried yourself in that dark corner of just being on the internet. You actually go out there and create relationships with people. That's how you're able to get the speaking gigs you're getting. That's how you're able to get, essentially where you are at your age, 18, which is fantastic. This is phenomenal, right? So I think that you are, let me just see if I can get the right word. You're a trailblazer. If that fits.
An outlier, yeah.
Absolutely.
Outlier. So yeah, I mean, just touching on what you said is, don't consume, create.
Absolutely.
Don't consume, create.
I love that.
Whatever you're passionate about, start a social media channel. Reach out to radio stations. Reach out to companies. Intern. Get experience. Like people say to me, "How do you get a job? How do I find an internship?"
Ask.
Go into LinkedIn, it's free. Go to a coffee shop, get Wi-Fi, get a smartphone, reach out to people. So many more, and hopefully we can chat about this.
Yeah.
How many opportunities have come from my personal brand and social media?
Absolutely. And the ability to pick a phone and call somebody. How many times have you asked me, "Hey, Nick, do you have some recommendations about speaking agents that can put me on?" I was like, wow, this guy he's going for everything.
If you don't ask, you don't get. And it's the fear of rejection.
Yeah, that keeps people from trying.
And even me, I still fear it. But when I get positive feedback and when something comes through, I focus on that.
Yeah.
And then another thing I want to say is like, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
And so people are seeing me here right now. But I can promise you, if I show you my phone, I've got photos of me sitting by myself facing a wall outside my tutor system because they wouldn't let me without a mask sit outside and work in the classroom. And so I was sitting by myself in that wall, sending emails, communicating with people, reaching out to people. And it's those moments consistently over years that have led to this moment.
Absolutely. And you've done great. Let's hunt down on technology, right? What are the technological innovations that you think are going to be like the game changers for Gen Zs, or essentially for everyone, or which are your favorite as technology is essentially taking over everything? What are those innovations that really stands out for you, or those that because you're building Gen Zs and encouraging them about building their businesses and all of that? What technologies or what innovations do you think are key for anyone to build a business in this digital era?
Well, there's so many. Just I don't think young people realize the opportunity we have with the cell phone.
Apps.
In fact, everything I've been able to do is because of technology and because of a smartphone, because of the internet. And so if you cannot be making excuses, you cannot be saying I can't find a job. It doesn't matter if you live in South Africa or you've got a degree or you don't. There's just too much opportunity with the internet. One of my favorite platforms, as I just mentioned, is LinkedIn. I think that the opportunities there and people that you can reach, like I've got some of, most of the JC listed company CEOs on LinkedIn following me. I've got celebrities. I've got Taylor Fritz, who's number 5 in the world in tennis. Like the opportunities there is incredible. Even if I look at one of our business, Houses Global, my business, South Africa, Stripe. So for everyone that doesn't know Stripe, it's a payment processing platform where you can basically accept payments from any country, and that in itself is amazing, Stripe. But South Africa doesn't allow for South Africans to use it. So what I ended up doing was setting up a Cyprus bank account and then linking my Cyprus bank account to Stripe and then linking sending my funds from Cyprus bank account to my South African account. I mean, just think about that. At 18 years old, I was set up a bank account in Cyprus, setting up with Stripe, receiving funds from companies in Canada, New Zealand, US, and then linking it to South Africa. Another platform that I love is a platform called Easy Equities, which basically allows you to make investments in stock options. So that's how I invested in Tesla, Google, Microsoft, S&P 500, which is one of my favorite stocks. So like for me, that in itself, that a 16-year-old with their parents' credit card or an 18-year-old or 25-year-old can invest in stocks easily. They can open bank accounts. They can, people ask me, how much does it cost to create an online business? I'm talking now a service-based business, so a marketing agency, and videography company. All you have to do is register a company, 1,500 Rand with the lawyer, register a domain, 79 Rand a month, plus gives you the email.
You're good to go.
And you're done.
Get yourself in the digital space. Because like you said, the power of a cell phone, which there's something that I highlighted in my book. the opportunities we have today are things that our parents did not have.
Yeah.
Just having a cell phone connected to the internet, that is a game changer. But a lot of people still do not understand the value of that. So much that you can do. And even when there's no way, because when you're explaining your Cyprus and having to link it to your Stripe, it takes someone who really wants to achieve something to do that. Now, for many people, the first trial, if it doesn't work out, they're like, well, I tried. Yeah. It didn't work out, so I think I'm done. So the one thing with you is that if you try it here and it doesn't work, you go the other way around, which is something
make a plan.
Everyone should try to do. If it doesn't work in one way, reach out and try it in another way. So that brings us to, okay, technology is fascinating, right? And there are a lot of people that are worried about losing their jobs or not having jobs at all. Machines are going to replace people, so there's not going to be jobs for anybody. Since you're building with Hustle Global.
Hustlers Global, yeah.
Yeah, Hustlers Global, basically helping the Gen Zs to build their own businesses. What message do you have for those that are worried about their future in regards to jobs? Like, okay, if there's going to be no job, does it mean your life is essentially over? Is that a hopeless situation? Should they be focusing on the technology replacing work? Should they be focusing on the opportunities? What's your take on that?
So I think it's actually, a lot of people don't understand AI and haven't done the research. And so I recently went to a talk by a research analyst called, his name is Dion, and from Flux Trends. And they basically shared that I think it was like AI is going to take 75 million jobs away from people, but it's going to create 120 million. So AI, and you can go and check the stats out, it's called Flux Trends, but basically AI is going to create more than it's going to take. And we've got this from the media, you're going to lose your job and 35% unemployment, and yes, all these things are true. However, just think about, it's the private sector, private businesses that are going to create more jobs. And if it becomes easier to do that, less cost effective, then unemployment rates are going to drop. And so I think AI, yes, it's going to affect us in many ways, but I think it's also going to create a lot of opportunity, especially in African content. It's going to give people huge opportunity. And I'm very excited because I believe in Africa. I'm wanting to stay here for the next 10 years. And so I think AI is really important from a health point of view, from a business point of view in Africa. And it's going to bridge the gap. This Silicon Valley dream that people have been sold is decreasing. You no longer have to go to Silicon Valley to have a huge unicorn and build a big business. And I think every year, every advancement decreases that advantage which South Africans and Africans, we want. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, at the end of the day, you can always find a job somewhere. And I think a lot of people are just not willing to put in the work and the sacrifice. Like, I guarantee if you had to spend a week just emailing as many people as you can, submitting as many LinkedIn job posts as you can, you would get a job. But who's willing to do that? No one. And so there's the problem that I really believe in. Another thing is upskilling yourself in those things. So learn coding on YouTube. Everything's free on YouTube. You can go and learn. Me as a person, I don't enjoy those things. I'm much more from a selling point of view. So I'll learn marketing, I'll learn creative, I'll learn how do I market campaigns with AI? How do I use AI in marketing? And so again, integrating this development into what you love. Because if you don't love it, you're not going to learn about it, you're not going to use it, and then you're not going to have a positive mindset around adapting to it. And if you can't adapt to it, you're going to die.
Absolutely. I was going to push back on the idea that AI is essentially going to create more jobs. I have my own ideas about that. We're running out of time, probably a conversation for another day, right? I have my own ideas around that. But I would want you to essentially, you've done very well with your brand. And what are some of the tips you can share with Gen Zs who are essentially looking to build a brand online? Might not necessarily be around exactly what you're doing, but what does it take to build a personal brand? I mean, at 18, you've done brilliant. I've been throwing all the flowers at you today, so.
You're my ego. Last year I reached 2 million people online. I had, starting the beginning of January last year, I had 0 followers on LinkedIn.
Wait. Last year?
Last year,
Really?
that was the first time I opened LinkedIn at the beginning of last year.
You have about 5K followers, right?
So yeah, 4,500 in 1 year. TikTok also started about 6 months ago. I had a viral video reach of around 700,000 views. So sitting around 9,000 followers on TikTok, and then obviously Instagram. So yeah, I've had some experiences in what it takes. I think what's really hard for me is that I've been putting content out for so long that when I did get that viral clip, like it was a huge relief, because I'm like, geez, like when is the algorithm going to work for me, or like why is it taking so long? But I think there's a certain patience that Gen Z and young people don't have when it comes to building a brand, and it's that consistency. If you do anything for a long time with quality, it's gonna work out. And so even with my businesses, I've had a total new look on them. I now look in decades. There's a saying that says, you can tell if someone's wealthy because they would work in 10-year timelines, which I believe in, because I'm creating a Stavrou holding company, which I want it to be a listed company. That's going to have my VC fund. That's going to have my consulting company. And then I'm going to have Hustlers Global. That's going to be the largest Gen Z entrepreneur community in the world, help the most Gen Z businesses and startups scale. So I've got these long-term visions and I'm committing to that. And my advice to young people would be, is number one, take the first step, because so many people have got, I don't know what to say, and what do I post, and what do I do? Like literally anything. Set up a meeting with someone, post about that. Go to an event, post about that. That's how I started posting. I went to these business events and I posted about them. I shared pictures with people of authority. And so, number one is start. Two is be consistent. Consistency is so important. And I believe, like, I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary V. Yeah. So Gary V's like, yo, you should be posting 50 times a day and all of this, and most people don't have that capacity and resources. So I rather say focus on one channel that you enjoy posting on, that becomes easy to you, and do as much as you can. If it's once a week, great. If it's twice a week, great. Just start on there and build up a momentum. And a quick hack on LinkedIn is that I send 100 requests every single day.
I did the same when I started on LinkedIn.
So how can you expect your post to go viral or get momentum or get shares if 20 people are following you?
Great point. I literally did the same when I started on LinkedIn, and that is how I grew on LinkedIn. Right now I'm maxed out on LinkedIn, so I'm no longer even allowed to send one request, unless I delete some people. But that's really how my journey started on LinkedIn, and you've done really well for 1 year to have grown the way you did. Number two, not many young people are on LinkedIn. Many of the Gen Zs are on TikTok, not LinkedIn. So I want to highlight on that, the fact that you have done very well with LinkedIn, and I think the advice should be that more Gen Zs should come on LinkedIn. Like it's one of the most authentic platforms for business connections, especially if the Gen Z is looking at building their own business. That's where they will be able to meet,
decision makers.
Exactly, maybe investors even. It's on that platform. So don't look at LinkedIn like it's a place for old people. Here's an 18-year-old who is killing it on LinkedIn. So my advice to everyone, especially the Gen Zs watching, would be for them to come on LinkedIn. And we are out of time, and I really appreciate you for coming through for the podcast. How can people find you?
Yeah, it's Marko Stavrou on all platforms, and Hustlers Global, so it's just Hustlers and global1word.com. And my email is marko@hustlersglobal.com. Reach out. I bet you guys won't. Always at the Future of Work, there were 700 people. I was speaking on the stage, 700 people. I said to them, reach out to my email. I bet you no one will reach out. And I was right.
That event was full. I remember I was there as well. No one reached out. That's crazy. So reach out, for those listening to this, reach out to Marko. You will be amazed at, the inspiration you get from following him. Because when I look at your social media, it's typically different from a typical 18-year-old social media. None of them are sitting and talking about business and plans for the future. None of that. But your social media is completely different. It's not about luxury lifestyle and posting things that don't add value literally to anybody's life. You're literally focused on empowering people, making a difference in the world, and helping people take up their businesses on the ground. So follow him. You will not be disappointed if you listen and watch up to this point. I'm sure you will see value following this guy sitting right here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming through.